And I want to talk about justice and the environment because that is what actually triggered my interest in social movements. I came across about 2012. I came across this research by someone called Andrew Dobson, who had done loads of research. He was a Green Party candidate and so on, and he had done loads of research, and he came to the conclusion that environmental sustainability and social justice have two completely different aims, and therefore the two things never really come together. Any coalescing, any bringing together of the two issues is really a marriage of convenience that's doesn't have any conjugal rights, and therefore will not bear any fruits, so to speak, within that sort of analogy. So that piqued my interest into looking at social movements, because I thought, no, hold on, I've seen lots of social movements around, and social movements, look at theory and think, we don't care. We want to put these things together. We want to fight for these issues, and therefore we're going to go ahead and fight for them. So many of the most significant social political changes in the course of human history cannot be fully understood without recognizing the operation and influence of mass movements, from religions to revolutions, abolitionism to universal suffrage, independence to civil rights movements. Mass movements have always played a pivotal role in shaping the world that we live in today. So from that perspective, we can perhaps think of movements such as XR, movements such as the transition movement, movements such as Jubilee for Climate, and so on and so forth. We can think of movements as prophets of the present. That means they speak before to announce what is taking shape without the fine details of what is actually to happen being laid out correctly, being laid out clearly. So we can also think of movements as thermostats, shaping the climate, shaping the climate of changes that are yet to be. So whilst many of our lobbied politicians tend to check the temperature of the polling data and look on Twitter and so on and so forth before declaring what their deepest convictions are, movements force issues out into the open, onto the streets, infiltrating the attention marketplace and opinion corridors of particular demands for change. But the success, failure, or the degree of change achieved by any movement often depends on linked dynamics between different factors, such as how movements use space and time, and the sort of resources available to movements, the political opportunities that present themselves. And what I think is perhaps the most crucial issue is how movements build solidarity within themselves and also across with other movements as well. Now, on that note, I want to touch on a couple of points that Claire mentioned there. Claire's talked very, very well about the IPCC reports, and recently Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, has said, this is a code red for humanity. And in fact, the latest one he said is an atlas of human despair or something of that sort. So when he first said code red for humanity, I thought to myself, hold on a minute, Senor Guterres. Code red for humanity has been happening for a long time. It's been happening for a long time. 10% of the world's population currently live on less than $1.25 a day. Every single day for them, it's a code red for humanity. Who do we mean by humanity when we're talking about code red for humanity? Right now, the impacts of climate change have come on our doorsteps, with flooding in Europe, flooding in London, flooding in places closer to us, and now we see a code red for humanity. People have been talking about code red for humanity for a long time. As Tim said earlier on, in 2009, you had Ambassador Lumumba from Sudan and many others, urging developed countries to have 1.5 degrees as the target. And of course, no, they weren't listened to because they were less important. Development trumped, or economic growth trumped what's they were asking for. So historically, when we look at the distribution of climate impacts, we see that the countries that have cause the least amount of uh, greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, that have produced the least amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, are currently paying, or have historically and are currently paying for the biggest impacts of climate change. So for me, it's very much an issue of justice. The climate issue is very much an issue of justice. And it was very interesting to listen to Claire talking there. Claire was talking passionately about so many things. And she mentioned, well, I won't repeat it because, I haven't got much time, but everything Claire said was about justice. It was about justice. She did not mention justice, but the undertones of absolutely everything she said was about justice. When I joined XR in 2019, I thought, well, as I said, I went to different spaces, different places, and I saw uh, what I've often referred to as a kaleidoscope of revolutionary possibilities. And then I came across the three demands, and I thought, oh wow, brilliant! This movement has demands. Oh, but this movement is missing a trick. This movement is missing a trick. Why is it missing a trick? Because it did not elaborate issues of justice. Tell the truth. Tell the truth about the historical causes of climate change. Tell the truth about issues of exploitation and pillage that have led us to where we are. So we missed a trick on that one. Act now. Act now on sorting out the inequality gap within and between countries. We missed a trick on that one as well. And then the third demand for me, that was the one that really drew me in and hooked me, because it talked about democracy, reforming democracy. And for me, we don't have democracy. We don't have representative democracy. It's not really what it is. It's just, for so long we've just been ruled by a certain group of people. We've had 55 prime ministers. 48 of them have come from either Cambridge or Oxford. Come on, what sort of democracy is this? Representative democracy is really just the interest of the powerful, is the interest of the elites, and that's not work. So for me, the third demand for exile was the one that really drew me in. Claire mentioned one word as well that I think we don't talk about enough there, and that is freedom. Our fight really is about freedom. It's about freedom, co-liberation, as we often talk about within XR circles. So we need to talk about justice. We need to talk about justice as freedom, and we need to talk about justice as love. We start from a place of love. What is the meaning of life? Who are we to each other? What does it mean to be a human being in this world that we live in today? Because code red for humanity, that humanity we see is graded. There are different grades of humanity if we really look at the world as it is today.